Hello, and welcome to a continuing session from B'nai Baruch on authentic Kabbalah. Welcome to week 4. I'd like to remind everybody, in case you haven't already heard, there will be a retreat in St. Louis on November the 14th through the 16th. That's Friday through Sunday. We've invited the entire world Kli to this, so there is limited seating. We've only got room for 600 people. So if you'd like to be here, and you really should be, please click on the link that you'll see at the banner on the Learning Center page and sign up, and we'll see you here. On the classes, we invite you to submit your questions, but please keep your questions to the topic of the class, and please include your name, and we'll get as many of the questions in as we can. We like to begin every lesson with an intention. And tonight we'll be reading, this is from Breaking the Iron Wall, paragraph 155. If all the works of Kabbalah were written only for those people that already have a deep understanding of the Creator, why do Kabbalists obligate every person to learn Kabbalah? Because in Kabbalah, one can find a wonderful special aid that even though he doesn't understand what he's learning, from his desire and will to understand what is being learned, he arouses upon himself the spiritual surrounding lights. Every person is guaranteed that in the end he will reach awesome levels of understanding, but the Creator thought in the beginning of creation to give pleasure to his creatures. He that doesn't merit in this incarnation, he will merit in the next incarnation, in the one after that, until he manages to complete the first thought of the Creator. All the while that a person does not reach his completion, those lights that are to be revealed in the future to him, those same lights that surround him, remaining standing and waiting until he frees himself from his egoistic wills, until they become unclothed, these same lights in his refined wills. But when a person studies Kabbalah, he mentions names of holy lights. And since these lights will in the future fill his soul, despite that his soul is still lacking refined wills, the lights still enlighten them to a certain extent. Rather, they enlighten without being enclosed in the soul. Since the wills are still unrefined, the souls cannot receive these lights. But the enlightenment that he receives from these lights from the outside, time after time when he studies Kabbalah, brings upon him the strength to fix these wills. So the light that surrounds one at the time he studies Kabbalah brings him to reach completion. There are two types of light: or panimi, inner light, that a person understands, feels, grasps, and sees, and or makif, the outer surrounding light, that a person does not receive inwardly. Rather, he feels a ray from the outside which surrounds him, that he feels the good waiting for him in the future. Continue?
Yes,
Tonight's lesson, the article is on the world of restriction. And if you haven't already, please open or download that article from the classroom page. Week 4 for September 28th. The world of restriction. Congratulations. You have made it through the first 3 lessons. But the question arises, what does all of this have to do with me? The answer is simple. Literally everything. You see, we were created for only one reason: to receive complete, unlimited, and absolute pleasure, delight. But in order to accomplish this, we must know how this system known as the spiritual worlds operates. Every law under which our corporeal world operates stems from the spiritual worlds. This is where our souls were before we were born. And this is where they will return after our lives end. However, we are only interested in the middle part, between those two events, between life and birth and death. That period where we are enclosed within the physical body and we have a heartbeat. This is precisely what Kabbalah helps us with, how to use everything in this life to accomplish the goal of experiencing the Creator. To ascend spiritually, we need to know everything and use all the possibilities that we are offered. First of all, we must know about what it is that surrounds us in this world in which we live. We need to understand the different categories of existence here: inanimate, vegetative, animate, and speaking, and how they work. Then we must understand ourselves. I do not speak of the animal we are encased within, but the soul within the animal. We need to understand how it grows, what part we can play in the soul's development, and then do all that we can to advance our spiritual ascent. This does not happen naturally, but the process is extremely low. This does happen naturally, but the process is extremely slow, bloody, painful, and ends right where you are today, learning how to accelerate the process in a conscious manner. So we end up with a choice. We can either take the responsibility into our own hands and do what the Creator is moving us toward willingly, or we can be coerced into the process by the Creator through suffering. This latter path is called the path of pain. As for myself, being a chicken at heart, I prefer the less painful path and will do tons of work in order to avoid it. The wisdom of Kabbalah is not about how to take care of our problems in this world. It does not cure our financial difficulties or help us to find a life mate. But it does tell us exactly how to meet our spiritual responsibilities and not be forced to advance through more troubles. In that way, it helps us to solve the overall problem from which all of our daily problems are sent to us. All of our headaches and sufferings are thrown in front of us for a single reason: to bring us to the point of beginning our spiritual ascent. But after we discover how everything works, the laws of the spiritual worlds, who sends them to us and why, we can use our everyday challenges to help us to behave more correctly and to move farther along toward the Creator.
So, good evening, everyone. And we're into our fourth lesson now. A special lesson tonight. It's on something called Or Makif. You just read about it in that initial, or at least heard Ed read about it in the initial intention in the Breaking the Iron Wall, which is actually the introduction to Tithe. Speak about that remedy, about that light that's so special, what it does and how it does it. That's what all of Kabbalah is about. It's what we have to learn. What are we looking at here? Really, what's the deal? What's the real deal? We're in a process, as you can see in the writing here. That process is happening, period. There isn't an option here. This isn't about, I can do this or I won't do this. There is an option with regard to how fast or how slow you go through the process. How if it is very long, slow, bloody, meaning unbelievable, long, drawn-out suffering, or if it is gone through in a fairly painless manner, fast, quick, to where I actually agree that my goal is to change. The problem is nobody wants to change. I don't want to change. I want my environment around me to change so that I can get some sort of pleasure from it. I have an environment right now to where, say I don't have a lot of money. Fine. I want my environment to change to where I have a lot of money. Or if I have an illness, I want my environment to change to where I won't have that illness anymore. In other words, I want my condition to change. I want the picture of the world as I see it, which I see myself part of, too. That's part of it. To change. And here's the problem. The problem is that I have no choice but to sooner or later begin to question, why am I going through these things? Why am I going through all the different circumstances I go through? Why is it that I only get maybe half or a third or maybe 1/100th of what I really want? What's the problem here? What's actually going on? What is the meaning of my life? And by the way, while I'm at it, is there something I'm supposed to be doing while I'm here on the planet? Do I have a purpose to be here, or am I just here to be born, go through those kiddo years, getting presents and having fun and playing and all the sad times that comes with it too, and becoming a teenager and then an adult, getting married, a decent job, having grandkids, and then now I die. Is that it? We call this process life. It's the furthest thing from it. This is the sensation of existence. It is the starting point. The starting point. And that's all. We have a question here, a couple of them that I want to read real quick. Number one, they're not bad questions. Julia from Florida. Are we able to receive more than just information by participating in this class? If our desire and hunger for the will of God is pure, is this a place to receive a greater awakening? Now you can understand why I wanted to read this one. You betcha. In fact, I just read it, Julie. We just went over that there is a remedy, that there is something that I can do. I'm going through a process here, and I have a choice. Do I want to make it quick, easy, painless, and receive a lot of pleasure to boot? Or do I want to go through it in a long, slow, suffering manner? Which is it? And the process, that shortening process, is exactly what happens here, Julie. Exactly what happens here. It's done through a really interestingly amazing force. That force is called Or Makif. We'll be talking about it in a minute. Paul from Portland, Oregon. If there's no coercion in spirituality, why do you say that the suffering is pushing us to the goal and that we need to learn how to attain the Creator ourselves? Here's what we mean by no coercion in spirituality. There's two parts to it. One's here and one's in spirituality. There's no coercion. Here, what's coercion, Paul? What is coercion to actually enter spirituality? What would it be? Coercion is when I sense the pleasure in front of me. For instance, my friend says, hey, why don't you spend the afternoon helping me with my yard? I say, I got things to do. And he says, yeah, but if you do it, I'm going to give you my second ticket to go to, say, the World Series. Well, what he's done is he's placed a reward in front of me. He's placed a pleasure in front of me that if I do this, I'll get this. There is nothing but coercion here, Paul. Nothing. It's everywhere you see. You don't operate without coercion here. What does that mean? You operate in a constant field of coercion, your desires. Every single time you want something and sense that you'll get pleasure from it, it's the sensation of potential pleasure that's coercing you. One doesn't sense that there's going to be something hunky-dory at the end of this rainbow here. Why? The Creator is concealed. Not only is the Creator concealed, the Creator's pleasure is concealed. All that big old chunk of pleasure that we drew earlier in the Hebrew lesson up here that comes from the Creator, Now let's go back even one more because the picture's bigger. It's called Or Yashar. This great big old direct light that's coming down and striking the Kli. This Or Yashar. Now, this light is this huge pleasure. I have no inkling, no notice that it's there. I'm oblivious to the fact that there is this massive potential for pleasure that's right there. Why? Because if it was there in front of me, if I really knew what the potential was, that much pleasure, because it's far more than you can get here, John or Paul. If I knew that that's what was waiting on me, I would instantly want it egoistically. I couldn't possibly do what I was created to do, and through this, and to gain this process of learning how to receive where I'm not receiving in an egoistical fashion. That's what we mean by coercion. That the creator and the light is concealed. It's nowhere to be found. What creator, what pleasure? John from Malaysia, are we co-creator? Yeah, we are agreeer. We're the agreeer in the deal. So let's not use the word co-creator. There's one creator. I do have a strong participation in the process if I so desire. And I can be a creator in the way that I can control one thing and one thing only, John. I've got my finger on the accelerator button. I can either accelerate it or leave it where it is. That's it. That's all. Parnell from Hollywood. When you speak of 613 desires, is this number allegorical or real? It's real. And I'm not going to get into it further yet because we're not there. Mike from Nevada, does our suffering come from not understanding the intentions of the Creator's giving? Our suffering comes from not getting what we want. Empty desire, a lack. Suffering is caused by a lack of something. And one more question before we return to the text. This is from George? It's got to be pronounced different than that. Jorge? Jorge, thank you. I have help here, by the way, folks. Jorge from Colombia. Can we say that Kabbalah is a method to become more perceptive to the Or Makif? Yes. And again, I'll stop right there because you'll be getting a lot more of that in just a moment. Let's continue.
Between the lowest part of the last spiritual world, the world of Asiya, and our world, this corporeal world in which we physically exist, lies a barrier known in Kabbalah as Maxom. Once we cross this barrier and enter the spiritual worlds, we begin a path of 6,000 steps towards the end result, known as the end of correction, Gamar Tikkun. Every single time we take another step up the ladder, it represents the removal of a layer of concealment of the Creator. The end of correction follows the correction of all man's desires. The first stage in studying Kabbalah consists in reading as many pertinent books as possible and digesting as much knowledge as possible. The next stage is group work, when the students and the group's desires merge. The students' vessels enlarge proportionately to the number of group members. In the group work stage, it is the group that symbolizes the Creator, since everything located outside of us is the Creator. Throughout time, Kabbalists have had groups. Only within the framework of a group, and based on the mutual ties fostered by its members, can students advance in their understanding of the spiritual worlds. The study of Kabbalah is, in fact, a two-part process. In the first part, we study creation and its ascent from that initial thought of the Creator right down to the level of our world. The second part is the study of the trip back up from where we exist today all the way back up the same path to the highest level. Now, it is important to note that the physical body does not go anywhere. We remain right where we are. We ascend in a spiritual way that arises from our efforts and the development resulting from those efforts. In our first 3 lessons, we learned about the initial stages of the process of creation and the parts of the creature. Now that we have learned a bit about the creature's anatomy, let's continue. You will remember that the creature decided not to take in all of the light, but only a part of it, say 20%. The other 80% was left outside. That light is called surrounding light, or makif. The light that is taken within is located in the toch, the body, and the surrounding light, the or makif, begins to influence the creature now. It says, you see how pleasant it is to accept a portion of the light? You do not know how much pleasure remains outside. Just try to accept some more. Now we can understand that it is better not to experience pleasure at all than to experience just a tiny bit. Pleasure exerts pressure from both the outside and the inside, and therefore becomes much more difficult to oppose. Ever try to eat just one potato chip? In many ways, it is much easier not to eat any potato chips at all than to eat only one. We can go for days, weeks, or months without a chip, but can we eat just one? The partsuf is the same way. As long as it was not taking in any light at all, it could remain in that state for a long time. But now that light is inside, it is like enjoying the taste of a potato chip as you eat it, and then also looking down and seeing the whole bag laying there. There is pressure from 2 places, not one. You are enjoying the potato chip on the inside, and you see that there is plenty more as well.
Okay. So what in the world are they talking about here? There's that word I kept bringing up. Really the last 2 lessons is kind of a preparation. What in the world is or makif? Or makif. What is this thing? Okay. We have a vessel with a masach, an intention to only accept pleasure, if it is in order to please the Creator. In other words, I must sense the Creator's desire to please me. Now think about this, folks. It isn't that I have to think, oh yeah, I'll accept this because I know the Creator wants me to have it. No, I have to truly sense the Creator's desire that He will receive pleasure if I take this. Otherwise, it's no good. So there has to be several different elements here. And this is really, really important, fundamental. The first thing is, we got 2 parts here. We have this thing called a masach. And its thickness, a screen. And its thickness is this thing called avyut. What is the avyut? It is how big of a desire I have, how thick of a desire, how dense of a desire I have to refuse every single thing, all the pleasure, unless it's in order to please the Creator. The thicker this desire of the masach, the thicker that thing is, stronger it is. The more light it can draw to the kli in order to bestow. I'm thinking of like a diving board. a thicker diving board, actually a real springy one, a real springy one, in a lot of ways, if I have enough force, let's say that I am a big boy, a real springy one isn't as good for me as a smaller diving board, or rather stiffer diving board, that I can really bend down because it's stiff and has a lot more force than that real springy one that goes down easy. That real stiff one, boy, you got to push hard, but then it's going to throw back up and throw the diver off of it if he's strong enough and thick enough to push down the board. Well, this light is strong enough and thick enough to most certainly do that. So, in this instance, I must have this huge intention, real strong intention, to only receive in order to please the Creator. That's the only way I'm going to do it. If I cannot do it under that condition, I won't receive at all. Now, the second part of this is the will to receive in itself. Now, let's say for a minute that we do this thing backward. Normally, here in the corporeal world, we think of it as, I want this, I want that, I want something else, right? This is the normal way that we experience desire. But let's pretend that we have this thing called an intention, which is, I will not receive pleasure of any kind unless I'm receiving it in order to please the Creator. Now, if you stop and think about it, I'm not talking about receiving something like a drink. I need something warm, please. I'm not talking about the reception of coffee like that or some item. I'm talking about the reception of pleasure. Of pleasure. The pleasure that might be contained in receiving something like that. So, where am I going with this? If my intention is to please the Creator, then it has to be sincere. The only way to receive, to please the Creator, is to receive. Not receive an ink pen, not receive a cup of water, not receive a thingamajig that holds my paper together. To receive pleasure. That's it. Why is this so complicated? Why is it so difficult? Because what I'm going to do is totally different than what we do here. It isn't that I want, it's that I have access to a desire and can use this desire to please the Creator. As much as I want to receive pleasure in it, and the more I want to receive pleasure in it, the more I can please the Creator. If I can only receive 10 grams of pleasure in it, then I can only please the Creator by 10 grams. If I can receive 50 grams of pleasure, then I can receive 50. Now, I'm not talking about a limitation. I'm talking about something else this time. We're not talking about the power of the masak. We're talking about the will to receive. Because this desire, I can only receive pleasure in as much as I want something. For instance, it's common knowledge to every student practically on the internet that I don't like tomatoes. Can't stand the little buggers. They're just awful to me. And all of my friends here in St. Louis look at me like I'm really strange, but I truly do not like tomatoes. There is no way I can take that tomato and eat it in order to please the Creator. Why? Why? I'm not going to get any pleasure out of the deal. The Creator is wanting me to be pleased. He doesn't give a flip about the tomato. He cares about me feeling pleasure inside. So, if you put something else in front of me, say, a great big juicy steak. Now we have something to talk about. Now here is something I like. This big steak that I just got grilled outside for me. This thing that I grew up eating ever since I was a kid and had this incredible appetite for all the time. Now I have something that I can already taste just thinking about it. Already taste. As if I had one today. And the more that I want that, that's what the Creator's after. That's what the Creator's saying. He's saying, whoa, that's the desire I want you to use. I want you to use that great big one. I want you to use that huge desire that you can take a whole lot of pleasure in. But the problem here lies in, yeah, I like that a whole lot. I like that pleasure a whole bunch. Thank you very much. So, in fact, I like it too much. That's where the masach comes into play. The light, the direct light, strikes the masach and reflects off. As we went through at the Hebrew lesson, this is Or Yashar. If you missed the Hebrew lesson at 5:30 today, Central Time, I hope that you will be with us next week. The reflected light is Or Makif. Is it the same light? No. Why? What is the difference? The difference in the two lights. The difference in the two lights is not in the way that the light is. In truth, there's only one light. But because I'm sensing it from my perspective, I sense light that I have not rejected yet, if I'm the Masach, as Or Yashar. I sense the light that I already rejected. Well, I wrote Or Makif, I'm sorry. I'm already thinking about Or Makif. This is Or Hosir, reflected light. I sense the light that I reflected off as Or Hosir. It feels different to me. It's the same light, but it feels different to me. It doesn't feel the same as this light. I sense it differently. Now, what's going to happen? Well, in truth, this particular light here, this Or Hosir, is very important. Why? You can think of it as like a tube, with this being the Or Yashar, this light, and it strikes the Kli, and then when it bounces off, it is contained within my intention to please the Creator. So now you can think of it as before it was just a single tube, and now it is a tube within a tube. Now it's what we call clothed. That Or Yashar, that direct light, is now clothed like this. And what's it going to do? We talked about this last week. It's going to build a calculating machine on 5 levels. Yes, they are the same 5 levels and qualities that we talked about last week, which are Keter, Hokmah, Bina, Zer, Anpin, and Malchut. And these 5 levels The strength of this musak is going to determine how much light I can receive in this kli. Now that light, let's say I can receive, let's say there's 100 grams of Or Yashar. And let's say that I can take in, say, 20 grams with the right intention. Only in order to please the Creator. If I took in 21 grams, I would be taking it all in for me. It'd be too much pleasure. I couldn't handle it anymore. If I took 19 grams, it wouldn't be enough pleasure. It has to be the exact amount I can take in order to please the Creator. And so what's going to happen? Part of my kli is going to stay empty. The part that the 20 grams won't go into. So, I've still got 100 grams of Or Yashar here, and 20 grams of Or Panimi, inner light, as we went over in the lesson, Hebrew lesson, inner light, Or Panimi. Where is the other 80 grams? Where's the 80 grams of light? Well, would you believe 20 grams comes into here, and the remainder of the light is called Or Makif, which means surrounding light. Surrounding light. What in the world does this do? It is going to influence the kli. It's going to influence the partsuf, the emanated being here, the spiritual life. Don't think of this as a human being, because it's not. It's a spiritual life, a spiritual entity, a soul. It is not the same thing as a human being, which is a corporeal animal. So, what does this Or Makif, this other 80%, do? What's it like? If somebody walks past your desk at work, and they have a potato chip, bag of potato chips, and they reach out and they lay a potato chip on your desk, and they say, "These are really good chips. Try one." Now, I wasn't hungry for that potato chip to begin with, but it looks pretty good. And, I'm still not that hungry, but this is my friend. This is my friend. And I don't want to insult my friend. So what am I going to do? What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the chip and I'm going to eat it. Did it taste good? Yes, I happen to like all the carbohydrates in it, and so that potato chip tasted pretty good to me. That's just fine. Next scenario. My friend comes by, just like before. Same thing. Says, "Mike, I want you to have a chip." And they lay the chip down. And they say, "Take the chip. Eat the potato chip." I say, "I don't really want that." They say, No, please. Go ahead. Take the chip and eat it. Enjoy it. You'll like it. These are really good. These are those new real thick kind. You're going to like them. And so I pick up this chip and I think, okay, I'll be nice. I care about my friend. I want him to be happy. And make him happy if I eat the chip. Crunch. Yeah, it tasted good. I enjoyed that chip. But in this scenario, what does he do? He sets the whole blasted bag of chips right on my desk and leaves. Better yet, he asked me, "Did you like that chip? Did you enjoy it?" And I said, "Yeah, you know what? I wasn't that sure about it, but it was great when I ate it." Now he sets the bag down. Says, "Bon appetit. Knock yourself out." Well, now there's a whole different problem, isn't there? My friend's gone. He's no longer there. Now I got a problem, don't I? Because I'm staring at that bag of chips. And anybody that likes potato chips, with all the carbohydrates in it, if you've ever tried to just eat one of those puppies, it is not an easy deal. Now all of a sudden, I don't want to eat just one potato chip. But I don't really care about my friend. He's gone. I want to eat the whole bag. Why? Because I like potato chips. So I'm going to devour this bag. I'm going to pick that baby up, rip it apart, and eat the chips. And it has nothing to do with my friend. Think of the bag sitting on the desk as the or panimi, as the or makif. Think of the one chip that I ate as the or panimi. But now there's a whole bag sitting on the outside of me. A whole bag. And I have absolutely no desire to please my friend at all. My friend's already gone. I just want the chips. This is the or makif. This is that extra light. That extra light. And the vessel says, I can take in 20 grams, and so it takes in 20 grams. But this other 80 grams of light starts pounding on it, saying, ha, 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 look how much more pleasure you can have. It's right here. It's in front of your face. Come get it. I want you to have it. In fact, it is good that you have it. There's a sensation of the Creator right there. You'll please me if you take it. There's your excuse. Go ahead now. It'll please me. Take the light. Take the light. This is the only possible way someone can bestow, in fact. If you don't have a sensation of the Creator saying, take the light. How much of it? All of it. Here it is. You don't have anything to make a calculation with. How much you can take in just for the Creator. You have to know the Creator's attitude towards you. If you can't sense the Creator's attitude towards you, how do you know it would please Him for you to take the pleasure? Or makif causes the kli to empty itself, to renew. Causes the kli to purify. And we'll be getting into more of that in a bit. But what does or makif do? What did that bag of potato chips do? It took my desire and it increased it. Everyone listen. Stop typing your question a moment and just listen. One of the most important concepts. There is only one way to enter spirituality. Only one. And that is to build the desire to do what the Creator does. To build the desire to make a selfless act large enough that it reaches a critical mass. It must reach a certain point. At that point, once it gets big enough, one instantly enters spirituality. Instantly. So the question is, how do I increase this tiny dot of a desire in me? What tool have I got to make this desire bigger? How can I do this to where it's to my advantage to grow this thing? Now I know what I have to do. Now I have to somehow increase this desire to make a selfless act. Increase the desire that's totally, completely opposite of my nature here. That's just a tiny little spark in me. What do I do? Remember the or makif I talked about a minute ago? Remember what the bag of potato chips does. Now when I just ate the one chip, I was fine. No problem. But when I had a whole bag of chips in front of me, now I want them bad. What did it do? It increased my desire. It made me want to eat more chips. It's like a machine that increases my desire. I understand what I'm saying here. This Or Makif, this weird force called Or Makif, is what blows up this desire within me, called the point in the heart, called the desire to bestow, the desire to do what the Creator does. That seed of a soul that will turn into a partsuf, an emanated being. So this Or Makif thing is pretty important. Without it, one stays a potential soul, a seed. You have to have the Or Makif. And this is precisely what, at the start of the lesson, when we read that opening part about why Kabbalists obligate each person to study the wisdom of Kabbalah, indeed there is a great thing in it worth of being publicized. There is a wonderful, invaluable remedy to those who engage in the wisdom of Kabbalah. Although they do not understand what they are learning, through the yearning and the great desire to understand what they are learning, they awaken upon themselves the lights that surround the souls. These lights are destined to reach him and are considered surrounding lights, or Makif. Or Makif. What's Baal Salam telling us? Let's go back a little bit in our questions here. To Julie in Florida, the very first question, are we able to receive more than just information by participating in this class? If our desire and hunger for the will of God is pure, is this a place to receive a greater awakening? Well, that is precisely what all of this class is for. Exactly what it does. This material, whether it be, what happened to Psiha? No? We're sitting up here, it's not important. Whether it be the book, what we're studying here, Ptiha. At least we're studying a form of it. Okay. Whether it be Introduction to Zohar, a book like this. What does this describe? Same thing we're teaching, except in a lot greater detail. What's it talking about? Is it talking about you? No. What's it talking about? It's talking about the soul in spirituality, the real you, not the will to receive that you sense as you. The soul. It's talking about all of its mechanisms and all of its parts. It's actually speaking with regard to what you are and what you'll sense as you later. This in turn draws the Or Makif, the surrounding light, this influencing force that increases your desire to be there, coupled with a teacher that keeps you on track and doesn't let you get too far off, and another external influence that's even more powerful than any of them, my friends that are studying with me, that constantly advertise to me the importance of the goal. Now you understand why this retreat is so important and why we feel the place every time we have one of these things. Because it draws Or Makif like crazy. They're unbelievable. A word about that. Why do people come to the retreat? It's very simple. What they learn in 6 months, the progress that they make toward the goal in 6 months, is about equal to what they make at the retreat. About the same. It may be a little bit more on the side of the retreat, but it causes a big jump. So, Julie, back to you. You bet you get a lot more out of this. You bet. The remedy is here. The remedy. The light, the Torah. Torah is not a book. And let's see if we can answer a couple more questions here before we go back to the text. Why is it so difficult to understand the objective of what happens to us in our everyday life, even when we want to understand, to learn, and to avoid suffering? The objective of what happens to us in our everyday life. What happens to us in our everyday life? We chase pleasure. That's it. We do everything we can. We have two items. We have necessity. We must have 1,500 to 2,000 calories a day to survive. I may need 2,500, but we must have a reasonable amount of warmth, a way to stay warm and out of the elements, or it doesn't take long. We have to have a shelter of some sort. We have to have a specific amount of water each day. And there is a certain amount of necessity for family, a person in someone's life. Children, these are things that are necessity inside us. In other words, we have a beastly drawing to them no matter what we do. Past that, we have excesses. I don't need a shelter. I need a house. I don't just need a cave. I need a house. In fact, I don't just need a house. I need a 2,000 square foot house or a 3,000 square foot house. I don't just need that. I want it brick with fireplace. And you see where we're going here. There's a big difference in necessity and the excess. Our suffering primarily comes from all excess. Not getting what we want. Not a matter of not getting what we need, not getting what we want. And all of our suffering stems from that basically here, except for one. The point in the heart. The point in the heart. The desire to do what the Creator does. This is a different lack. This is one that can't automatically be fulfilled here, and that makes it much more difficult. Carl from Wilton, New Hampshire. Is it a desire to please the Creator or a desire to feel the pleasure that the Creator feels when I receive? Very good, Carl. What is it really? In truth, it isn't even that. It's just some desire that I feel for pleasure that I can't get here. That's how it starts out. I want to receive some pleasure, but I can't get it from anything in corporeality, no matter what I do, Carl. What am I going to do? I'd start figuring it out. It's because this pleasure that I'm after is literally out of this world. And I figure more out. Yeah, I want the pleasure of the status of the Creator. That's specifically what this is. That's what the soul is. The desire for the status of the Creator, to be the giver. We told the story about the about the man, the king, who had a long-lost childhood friend that he discovered still alive. He brought him before him, and the guy was just destitute and poor. And he started lavishly throwing gifts at him and everything that he wanted. He gave him everything. He gave him home, food, work that he would be able to earn his living and live comfortably. And he said, look, I've missed you. I'd give anything. The king tells the gentleman, he says, is there anything I can do for you? He said, yes, there's something you can do for me. I want to be the giver. And the king says, I'm sorry that I can't give you. He wants the status of the king. That's what Kabbalah is all about, Carl. It has nothing to do with corporeal desires. It has desires to do with the status of the king. It's the most egoistic desire that there is. There's none more. And it has to be corrected for the right reason. Maria from Venezuela, you were saying that there are 6,000 steps to achieve total correction. Weren't there 125 steps? Oh, that ladder seems to be getting longer. Gee, you got a point. It depends on how you break it down. Maria, I can say that there are 12 steps that one has to go through in a year to get from one year to the next. I can say there are 52 steps that you have to go through in a year to get to the end of the year. I can tell you that there are 365 and a quarter steps that you need in order to get to the end of the year from the first of the year. So it's all in how you break it down, isn't it? Yes, there are 125 steps. Yes, there are 6,000 steps. That's true. It depends on how you break it down. We can also say there are 613 steps. And Maria from Spain. We have two Marias. That one was from Venezuela. This one's from Spain. Hi, Maria from Spain. Why is it so difficult to understand the objective of what happens to us in our everyday life, even when we understand to learn and avoid suffering? Did we answer this? No. Why is it so difficult to understand the objective of what happens to us in our everyday life? Yeah, we did answer this. This is real simple, of course, and that is the objective in our everyday life as we see it today and right now is to receive pleasure. It doesn't apply to what this desire is for. Everyday life won't cut it. Everyday life, I want to get what I think is right. I want to get what I think that I need that will make me the happiest. And if I can't have it, there's going to be hell to pay. Yes? Ashley from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Hi, Ashley. How do separate pleasure from the things, actions around us? How do we separate pleasure? It must be what it means. How do we separate pleasure from the screens, from the things and actions that's happening around us? Not only do you have different parts, you have different clothings of pleasure. And you're talking about corporeality, of course, and everything here is talking about spiritual, but everything in corporeality has spiritual roots. What you have is a division there too. Remember, Keter, Chokmah, Bina, Zerampin, and Malkut? So I have all the spiritual worlds, Adam, Kadmon, with Galgalta, Ab, Sagma, and Ban. Then I have the worlds of Atzilut, with Beriah, Yetzirah, and Asiya. I have I have 5 different Sfirot in each one, Keter, Chokmah, Bina, Zerampin, and Malkut. And they, in turn, have 5 Sfirot, Keter, Chokmah, Bina, Zerampin, and Malkut. So I have Keter of Keter. I have Chokmah of Bina. I've got all different combinations. And what we're talking about is combinations of qualities. Different qualities of both pleasure and desire. And that's what's appearing before me in this, a teeny tiny drop of it, in this hologram that is truly not real. In other words, it won't help you. Madian. Hi, Madian. I've seen your questions on the internet and on the forum. You're asking some really good questions, by the way. Isn't the point in the heart of coercion? No. And yes. You'll hear that answer a lot. If I don't know what it is, it's not. I'm just sniffing around for more pleasure. Trying to do what I can to get some extra pleasure. And here's a desire that I can't find the source to. And if I had the source to it, boy, howdy, I think I could go to town with this one. In truth, is it coercion? Of course. We're coerced to be born, we're coerced to live, and we're coerced to die. But it's still not coercion like you're thinking. You're thinking coercion in terms of a desire. In truth, the coercion part comes when I can sense the pleasure. Now I've got coercion. Set the $10,000 there in front of me on my desk, and now I'm coerced. Or check. Betsy from Florida. So are we to look for the pleasure in everything in this life? No, it has nothing. Sure, go ahead. But, I mean, the truth is, spirituality has nothing to do with it. Do what you like here. My suggestion is you don't go crazy, because if you do, and you do something illegal, you'll go to jail for it. Ashley, our pleasure is equal only to our desires. So how do we transform our desires without using the outer corporeal world? How we transform our desires? First thing you have to do is discover the desire. Discover a desire for something other than what you can get here. Other than what you can get here. And that's not easy. So what desires, Ashley? The ones here, they have nothing to do with spirituality. They only have to do with this place of total and complete concealment. They won't help me. I need a desire to do what the Creator does. I've got to find a way to develop that desire, and only that one. Why, if the Creator wants to please us, we do not see Him? Leslie, it's real simple. That would be coercion. That would be coercion. Let's continue on, and then we'll pause a little bit later. We're not going to get through much of this if we don't go.
The Partsuf is being pressured from both the inside and the outside now. It has already calculated how much it can take in for the sake of the Creator. If it takes in even the smallest amount of extra light, that tiny bit of light dooms it to receiving for itself and feeling that horrid shame, which is much worse than not getting the pleasure. There's only one thing it can do. It can only reject the light it has within in order to return to its initial state of emptiness before accepting any light. And this is exactly what our creature, the Partsuf, does. The light taken within for the sake of the Creator is called Or Pnimi. The surrounding light that was the light not allowed within is called Or Makif. The pressure these two lights exert at the same time on the screen, the masak, in the navel, the tebur, which is, the tebur is that border in the Partsuf that separates the tok and the sof. That pressure is called the beating within and without. In Hebrew, it's called Bitush Pnimi Umakif. In other words, these two lights exerted pressure on the border that divides the areas where the creature accepted pleasure and did not accept pleasure. What exactly is occurring inside the Partsuf? The light was taken inside the mouth, the pei, and that shoved the screen down to the level of the tebur that equaled that 20% that the creature calculated it could accept for the sake of the Creator. The tebur, the navel, is the place in the goof, the body, where the creature decides it must not take any light lower than the goof. When the creature determines it cannot handle the pressure and must expel the light from its body, then the masak, the screen, rises back up to the mouth, the pei, shoving the light away. Actually, it's not that the creature cannot handle the pressure. It turns out that what the creature discovers is that this is not satisfying the goal to receive only in order to please the Creator. So how did the creature know how much to take in? How did it arrive at that figure of 20%? That is the Rosh's department. Before the creature ever let any light within the tok, It had every bit of information it needed to make the decision. It knew what kind of light it was, what kind of delight it would bring, what its own desire was, and how strong its force is opposed to the delight for its own sake. Remember that the first thing the Partzuf does is to refuse the light, rejecting it completely. That light is called Or Hoser, returning light. Within that light is all the information that is needed for the Rosh to calculate. And according to this information, as well as the information remaining from the state when the Partzuf was filled with the light, and from the state following the restriction of the light, the Partzuf keeps a memory of the past, an imprint called Reshimo. So what really exists in the spiritual? Only the desire to delight, and the delights that satisfy that desire. You might remember the term aviut, all the information about the desire the creature has. The Rosh has this as well as the information about the light. The process of expansion of the light within the Partzuf is called hitlebshut, clothing. One can truly say that there is only the Creator and the creation. Every time the creature expels the light and then begins calculating, it has information from its previous state. It has a memory of the desire and a memory of the light, what the light was like. In Kabbalistic terms, it has reshimo of aviut, of the desire, and a reshimo of hitlabshut, the light. That is all it needs in order to know precisely what it felt when the light was last taken in. Now it can make a proper calculation about what to do next and how to carry it out.
Okay. What in the world are they talking about? So, we have the root, we have the 4 phases of direct light, only here is there actually a true independent desire. There is a desire to do what the Creator does, the desire for the status of the giver. This only comes after the vessel has experienced doing what the Creator does, bestowing, which is what it did in Zerampin level. Now what's going to happen? Now it is going to take in all of the light, everything. And it's going to take it in order to please the Creator. And it's going to do it so it can get both the pleasure it originally got, and it's going to do it also because it enjoys the status of the Creator. Now what's going to happen? It takes in all this pleasure. What does it do? It begins to sense the status of the Creator because it did it in order to please the Creator. But there's a fly in the ointment here. There's something going to go wrong. In addition, it's going to feel, it's going to sense its own properties. And now that it's done what the Creator does and has the sensation of the status of the Creator, it senses the Creator's properties too. It has a sensation of itself and the Creator. And it senses this huge, massive difference between itself and the Creator. And it's huge. What does it cause? Suffering. What's going to happen? It's going to say, that's it. No. Yes, I want the sensation of the Creator. Yes, I want the pleasure. No, I don't want the shame. Heck with this deal. I quit. I will receive nothing, not a thing, knowing that it has to receive in order to exist. Now, remember, it has the sensation of the Creator. So it knows that the Creator wants to please it. There's no question in its mind. So it is not satisfying the goal of creation, and that's what its duty is, to satisfy the goal of creation, to be able to receive pleasure from the Creator without feeling this huge, massive sensation of shame. So what's it going to do? It's going to say, okay, I will take in the pleasure. I will take in the pleasure. But only under the express condition that I'm doing it only based upon whether or not, only based upon whether the Creator is receiving pleasure. That's it. Whether it's for the Creator, not for me. And so what does it need? It needs data. And what it starts to do, it figures it out. It figures it out. Here's what it figures out. If I take in this pleasure, I feel shame for it. I feel shame for it because I sense my qualities along with the Creator's qualities. And I sense the difference, and so I feel horrible. I need a manner to accept the pleasure without the sensation of shame. I need a manner in which to be like the Creator without knowing that's what I'm doing, because if I know in advance in the deal, if I already know in advance, if I know that the pleasure is waiting on me, if I know what the Creator is like in advance and I'm not in concealment, I'm just going to want it egoistically. I need to have a way to choose to have the qualities of the Creator all on my own, no coercion, no nothing. So what I've got to do is to distance myself in sensation of both the light and the giver in the light of the light. And this is exactly what it begins to do. To build a machine called spirituality, which will bring it all the way down here, and then slowly, over a period of 6,000 years, prepare the creature by breaking it into little pieces. Why into little pieces? Well, there's a parable about that, about a king that had a big treasure. And he had all these different people. But he couldn't trust any single one of them to take this huge treasure. All of his subjects, he couldn't trust them. He had thousands of subjects, and there wasn't a single one he trusted with his entire treasure. So what did he do? He divided his treasure up into little bitty pieces and gave each person a piece so they could take the treasure to his new palace. Pretty smart, huh? This is exactly what's happening with us. Each one of us has a little bit of egoism that needs to be corrected. It's actually a vast amount of egoism. Now, what's it going to do? It's going to build this machine, and from here on out, we're going to describe the machine. In truth, what's happening? It's actually doing the process from here out. It's in control. It's an independent creature now. So the first thing it does is it builds what's called Parzuf Galgalta. We're going to get into this heavily later. That consists of a Rosh, a Talk, and a Sof. It's going to take in the direct light, as I showed you earlier. It is going to reject it. There's the Or Hosir, the rejected light, the reflected light. It's going to make a calculation in the Rosh of how much pleasure it can take into the Talk. And so that light actually builds this rosh. It's going to have two forms of information. It's going to have information about the pleasure, and it's going to have information about its own desire, how much it wants it. That's what it's got. It's then going to make a calculation. How much light can it take in to itself with the right intention? That light's going to be or makif. Pardon me, or panimi. The remainder of the light that stays outside is or makif. And I wanted to delineate this. Now this or makif, this 80% is going to press against it big time, folks. Big time, this 80%. And it's going to say, hey, this is not fulfilling what I want to do. This is not working. I'm wanting it too much. And in that I can't handle it, I could stay here, but I'm having to fight it. This is not the way it was intended to go. I've taken in all this light, and now I've got the bag of potato chips pushing on me to eat more. And I can't do it, and I'm suffering out of this deal. So what am I going to do? I am going to reject that light and not take in as much, and see if maybe taking in less works better for me. Now, as this light comes in here, there is, after it leaves, there's a reshimo. A reshimo. Think of it as a memory or a record of the light. A record of the light. And as the kli leaves, there is a reshimo. Now, listen close here. This is important. Here's something really unique. Each reshimo, as of the light leaving, these are called tamim, the light that's coming in, ta'amim, tastes. And this is called nekudot, points. This is the withdrawal of the light, and it's memories of the withdrawal of the light. But look what happens. The reshimo from each level falls into the level below it. It falls into the level below it. Why do I bring this up? For a very good reason. If you go all the way through all the worlds, if you go through Adam Kadmon, Atzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. Guess I can spell it the way we do. All of these all have 5 parts to them, each level. And where are we? Everyone knows we are here. We've been through this last couple weeks. We're down here as a point under Asiyah. Now, did you hear what I said? We're down here as a point under Asiyah. What's happened? That reshimo fell into total, complete concealment, where there is no spirituality. And it is a reminiscence of one's next state. This point in the heart, this desire to do what the Creator does. It is a memory of my next state, which is in spirituality. That is why all of these corporeal desires down here, Won't help me a bit. That reshimo that fell down into here, that memory from my from my last spiritual state, is the only thing that can help me. That is my point in the heart. Nothing could be more important than that. So now you know where you got your point in the heart from, what it's trying to do. It wants to go all the way back up through here. And it will be placed in situations more and more until it's coerced into doing it. What does that mean? Until the will to receive is coerced. It's not really coerced. It's fine. It's the will to receive that's coerced. Let's take some questions. Raldo, well, let's go to our friends in Chile. Uchi, U-C-H-I? Uchi from Chile. What is Machsom, and when or how do we cross over it? Well, as we said here, what's this barrier? It's when my entire state rises back in from the memory of that. When I move up here. When I stop identifying myself with regard to this corporeal beast animal that's only about this place down here. And I begin to instead identify myself with what I really am, the eternal part of me, the part that doesn't go away after death. That's the soul, folks. That is the point in the heart. That is the desire to do what the Creator does. It's not going anywhere. So which one does one identify themselves with? It's in concealment right now. But that is the process of Kabbalah, beginning to sense out of that sixth sense. Wilson from Salvador, is the Or Makif an initial or constant light? You'll feel it as both. It's always there. But what do we mean draw light? What is drawing light? Oh, light come, right? No. It doesn't work that way. The light, think of it as a force. The force is going to increase my desire. Let's not forget that. Second of all, we have to remember what's going to cause this thing to come. It's going to come when I want it to. That means when I'm studying, when it is in my absolute forefront, and I am with my friends all together under the influence and that environment. What is the environment of my friends? It's all the people that want the same thing. What does that mean to want the same thing? It's all the people with this desire in them. This thing called a point in the heart. Nothing could be more important than this little gizmo here. Nothing. Because without that little point in the heart, there's no desire for true spirituality. There's a desire for angels or whatever, but not spirituality. So, yes, I have to draw the Or Makif. What's the requirement? The Rav, the books, and the group. Absolute must. Carlos from Salvador, what can we do to decide how much light to receive? What light? It's all in concealment right now. What you have to do, Carlos, what does one do when they enter spirituality? They attain the masaks over different desires. But we'll come to that. That's down the road. That's talking about personal correction. Is it enough only to have a desire to receive in order to develop it in me? No. It has to be a desire to receive pleasure from doing what the Creator does. Everyone's got a desire to receive. That isn't enough. Paloma from Cancun. Oh, pardon me. Corey from Argentina. How can we know when you have the correct intention in this particular moment? How can we know if your desire isn't to just learn what's going on here, isn't to just get smarter, to learn a process? If your desire is to change qualities from this operating program to where it only operates on greatest amount of pleasure for least amount of work. And that's why people say, well, you can do corporeal giving. No. You see, this is corporeality. It's complete, total, 100% concealment of any of the spiritual qualities. Any of these qualities here. None of the spiritual qualities, none of them are present here. It's in concealment. It doesn't exist. What's in spirituality? The desire to do what the Creator does on different levels and different degrees. So, there is absolutely nothing I can do with my desires here except for this point in the heart. The correct intention is when I want this desire in me to grow. In other words, when I want to change my operating program from the way I am here to the operating program of spirituality. When that happens, I'm in business. Paloma from Cancun. How can I work with my desires in order to be similar to the Creator? How can I work with my desires in order to be similar to the Creator? I just answered that. You can't, except for one. Except for one, the desire to do what the Creator does. All the rest are for petty corporeal pleasures here. You can't do it. Don't restrict them. Julio from Colombia. I receive the light that I want from the Creator, or do I receive what I'm capable in a certain period of time? Right now, you receive nothing. There's total, complete concealment of the Creator's light here, and the Creator and the Giver, both the light and the Giver. It doesn't exist here. But in time, what you do is attain the qualities of the Creator. Attain the ability to do what the Creator does, in other words. In other words, attain the screens. And then you begin to use them in order to bestow. You begin to receive in order to bestow. But we're talking about in spiritual desires, not in corporeal desires. Let's not make that confusion. Gustavo from Mexico. To feel the need to study Kabbalah frequently is to draw the Or Makif. No, it's a desire to draw the Or Makif, and it's very good. And when you come and study, when you participate with your friends on the forums and things like that, you draw incredible amounts of light. That's why we do the congresses and the retreats. The amounts of light that are drawn when everyone is together, all in one place, all concerning one goal, it's unbelievable. People go through changes that it takes them 6 or 7 months. See, that's what I'm saying. People wonder, what do you mean you advance 6 or 7 months worth of advancement at a retreat? What I mean is that you go through 6 or 7 months worth of changes. What you would change normally in just regular study, 6 or 7 months, you advance in that Congress in 1 weekend. So it's very powerful. Myrta from Argentina. So do you mean that everything is Or Makif in a certain level, and when I have the correct desires and take it and convert it in Or Yashar, is that correct? No, what I'm saying is that I use it for a tool. I use it for a tool to increase my point in the heart, to where I begin to place this incredible goal to do what the Creator does above every other goal, above all other goals. Because without it there, it won't happen. It has to be from the bottom of my heart. And I have to have help because I've got constant confusions in my life. I have things from family, from friends, from work, from my own needs of wanting to have more money or wanting control or wanting more honor or wanting more knowledge or all these different things that I want here in this corporeal world. And so I need help. I have to have help to remind me constantly what is the most important desire for me. So I have to place myself within an environment that will ensure me of this all the time. And I don't mean moving there. Before someone asked there. Mariela from Peru, are the 613 mitzvot the same that the 613 spiritual mitzvot? Are the 613 physical mitzvot the same as the 613 spiritual mitzvot? Of course not. It isn't a matter of what you're doing physically. We'll take a couple more here, and then I'll let you post the rest of them on the forum, and we will come and answer them for you. Michelle from Albuquerque. So is the desire that receives pleasure not something tangible? I mean, are they not of the corporeal world? No. Spiritual desires. Desires that have to do with having the status of the Creator. If not, how can corporeal desires that we have please the Creator? They can't. Forget it. You can't use spiritual desires that way. I mean, corporeal desires. Corporeal desires are used for one thing and one thing only, and that's it. To give you a sensation of existence. They are so tiny, so minuscule, and mean absolutely nothing. And that's hard, because you don't see spiritual desires. And these are all I got. What are you saying? They're nothing. But it's true. Demir from Brisbane, Australia. Hi, Demir. Well, you're up late or early, one of the two. What time is it in Australia? It's got to be late. Is the pleasure we receive from material things the same as the spiritual pleasure we have to receive in order to please the Creator? No. We just answered that. Jari from Finland? Jari? Hope I didn't insult you there, but hi, Mike. How to please the Creator then? By rejecting some of the pleasure, or what pleasure? First, I have to attain the qualities, attain the ability. This is number one. If I have pleasure come to me before I have the ability to accept it in a non-egoistic fashion, I haven't seen any suffering compared to that. That's called spiritual suffering, shame. And it's not the same thing. That's what we have here. So what do I have to have instead? I have to have a massage. I have to have a way to measure. This whole exercise is how to get a massage. What does a massage do? It changes my operating program. It gives me that operating program of, instead of greatest amount of pleasure for least amount of work, now I calculate differently. How can I use this pleasure in order to bestow? Can I bestow with this or not? Vancouver, Ed, Mike, if my ego is my current program, how do I make an altruistic decision that is purely from the Creator? You have to have a change of qualities, Ed. It isn't just that you go do it. You have to have a change of your own qualities. Nancy from New York, is the purpose of life to teach the soul to ascend to the spiritual world? The purpose of life is for the soul to go through its process of correction and receive in order to bestow. Let's call it an evening there. We've run 5 minutes over, and obviously you will have a class. I believe it's Thursday, is that correct? Because of the holiday, we will have a class next Thursday, not Wednesday. Tony's class will be then. So do not come next Wednesday, come the following Thursday. You'll also receive something in the mail about it. And it's because of the holidays that they have right now. And we participate in a lot of those, even long distance, with our friends in Israel. And all over the world, by the way. Also, if you have studied with us for a while and are back studying with us again, you already know the value, especially if you came to the Congress in May, you know the incredible value of what happens there, the magic that happens there. We've only got 600 spots here, so we're giving you advance warning before we unload this on the entire world CLE. Go register quick. It's a heck of a deal with prices and all of that. Of course, we do that. We negotiate great deals for our people. That will be here, by the way, in St. Louis. Rav will be here as well. Take your questions. Please go put them all on the forum, and we will be there to answer them. Either I will be there, Tony will be there, Igal will be there, Mark will be there. We have William, Dave. We have a lot of people to answer your questions. So please come and post your questions, and we'll get to them all. Until next Sunday night, have a great night. Bye-bye.